Hi Bhavan, Vanakkam, good evening. Thrilled to be here with you on Sri Lanka Internet Day. This session is about how to migrate to AWS with confidence. I'm Pranesh, Solution Architect for Sri Lanka in AWS. And I have with me my colleague Sriram, Solution Architect. He's based out of South India. We both will be co-presenting this session today. So over to you, Sriram. Let's get started.
Hey, thanks, Pranesh. Are you, Bhavan? Let's get started by first looking at the agenda for today. So we'll be starting off with why migrate to cloud. We will be looking at then some of the key business drivers and compelling case studies that establish benefits of migrating to cloud. Then Pranesh would be Then Pranesh would be talking about core AWS service offering and how AWS acts like a differentiator for this and why you should host on AWS. And in the third part, we'll be talking about how to migrate. We'll look at some of the recipes of a successful migration. We'll quickly understand tools and methodologies which can support and leverage for driving a successful migration. So with that, I will just get started with the session. So let's start off by understanding the most common drivers for migrating to cloud. So what we have done in AWS is that to help organizations quantify these business values, we have developed something called Cloud Value Framework. So what that is basically we have tried to quantify the business case into 4 distinct areas of value: cost, staff productivity, operational resilience, and business agility. So let's have a very quick look at each one of them, what that means quickly. To start off, when customers consider AWS, they want to look out for cost reduction. So any customers who have adopted AWS, they have seen a reduction in the percentage of their IT spend, freeing budget to reinvest back in the core business area. So typically the cost reduction they realize is anywhere between 25 to 40%. And it is more so for some of our other customers. So, for example, GE, General Electric have realized more than 50% reduction in TCO by just adopting the elasticity of AWS cloud and utilizing different pricing models. And as customers start operating on AWS, they start realizing some more compelling cloud benefits and business value. So in the data center world, employees would spend a lot of time working on provisioning server, patching, and there would be some dedicated people, IT staff to procure, set up, and maintain physical servers. So with AWS, these responsibilities are no longer there. IT expertise can be put to better use for, let's say, working on developing more better UX, for example. Right. And so to give an important example, like we have a customer called Sage. So Sage was, as you know, Sage provides ERP on cloud. So Sage was able to reduce more than 500 hours per year. This is just on time spent on server configuration. Right. And so staff productivity is something that customers see immediately as they start, utilizing AWS. And as we move on, we have something called operational resilience. So this is all about reducing the disruptions to your core businesses and improve your operating SLAs. So the availability and security services in AWS, it enables customers to improve the SLAs and reduce the unplanned downtime. To quote an example, Expedia, one of our customers, they are able to run critical workloads by utilizing, by just hosting their application in multiple availability zones and regions, right? And last but not the least, AWS customers are able to accelerate time to market and with an increased pace of experimentation and faster deployment. with fewer errors. So one of our customers is Intuit. They were able to get like 5x improvement in productivity by simply utilizing some DevOps practices and services on AWS. So to kind of summary, like these are the benefits, key business drivers that comes up when we move on to AWS cloud. We will be touching little more detail on what are the AWS services, specific AWS services, and what offerings or methodology when Pranesh talks more about the AWS service offerings, right? I just want to, bring attention to one of the customer case studies. So as they say, like the proof is in the pudding, right? So let's look at a customer success story on this business value, subject of business value. So this is a customer called Intuit. Intuit operates a website called mint.com, which is to manage personal finance. So for Intuit, it was like literally a no-brainer for them to consider hosting in cloud, because they want to focus more on developing product, financial management product, and they want to focus less on data center or like backend IT environment management. Right, and these are some of the benefits that they have achieved by migrating onto AWS. So, for example, they were able to realize 25% cost reduction, and followed by like 15% improvement in productivity. This improvement specifically came because they decided to host their database in managed database offering called Relational Data Store. And this significantly reduce the DBA, the amount of DBA activity that is needed on the database. And if you were to look at failover, they were able to reduce from 30 minutes to 1 minute. And this is very important, because if you look at a financial service, every second counts, every second is $1. And reducing downtime has had very significant impact in the way they operate business and reduce loss of revenue. And finally, I want to touch upon hours versus weeks. So this is a repeated pattern that we have been seeing from customers, where they were able to easily adopt provisioning servers, or they can adopt like very robust CI/CD DevOps practices. All of this are enabled by utilizing AWS services. And a lot of our customers have given testimonial that when they operate on AWS, their productivity has it has reduced from weeks or even months to hours or days, right? So this is one example called mint.com. I just want to quickly run through some other customer examples, right? To quote Coca-Cola, apart from cost reduction, they were able to reduce their manual process within their org from 36 hours to 10 seconds. So this was achieved by adopting a service called Step Function, which lets them to create a complex business process orchestration. Then we have News Corp, which is America's largest newspaper in circulation, and they were simply by consolidating all their data centers, they were able to get around like 75% savings in infrastructure, which is equivalent to 100 million, which they were able to reinvest back to their core business. So this is just a few examples. And like I said, one common theme across all the customers is that customers operate more reliably, more securely, and they are able to scale more easily than it would have been possible if they were to operate elsewhere, like an on-premise or a co-location, right? I would like to further this customer success story with something which is very relevant to Sri Lanka. Like this is a customer called Meda Safety. Meda Safety, as you know, is like world's leading brand in industrial safety products. So they migrated from on-premise to their SAP workload from on-premise to AWS. And they were able to achieve like 40% reduction in TCO, 99.9% uptime by using the multi-AZ availability zone. And they were able to meet some of the rigorous ISO compliance standards by adopting AWS Cloud. And Looking back, these are just some of the case studies, right? And there are like many customers whom we have worked with and who has benefited from migrating to cloud. And to just recap, like customers start off with like cost savings, and as they operate, they continue to achieve improved productivity, more operational resilience, fewer downtimes, and increased agility. Like these are four distinct areas of business value that combine to help your organization to accelerate innovation. Right. So this makes AWS migrating to AWS Cloud a very compelling option to host and migrate your workloads to. Right. So with that said, I would like to hand over to Pranesh. Pranesh will dwell deeper into AWS core services, which can help realize these business benefits. Over to you, Pranesh. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Sriram. So let's move on, Sriram. So yeah, a quick introduction again. I'm Pranesh, working with Sri Lanka customers for the past 1.5 years. Yeah, due to COVID, I'm not coming. Otherwise, I used to spend at least 2 weeks in a month only in Colombo and meeting some of you I might have met already. So very happy to meet you in this forum. So when customers ask me what is AWS, so the answer I give them is, think of it like an extension of your data center. Everything that you run in your data center, you are able to run it over there. So you're able to provision your network, storage, compute, and run your environment in this other data center. Let's move on, Sriram. So if you look at our AWS global platform, AWS has 24 regions. Most of the Sri Lanka customers that I'm speaking with use the Singapore region. Though the India Mumbai region is the closest to you, but latency-wise, because it's a single link between Sri Lanka and Singapore, most of the customers get a 60 millisecond latency between their on-prem data center and the Singapore region via VPN tunnels. So I've seen many customers using the Singapore region. And you can see that there are many more regions. Of course, people also use Singapore region as the main region and the India region as the DR region, or the Sydney region as the DR region. So they are those kind of customers, and we have global customers based out of Sri Lanka who use multiple AWS regions like Europe region, North America region, and so on. So diving deeper, in addition to region, we also have something called availability zone. Every region is made up of multiple availability zone, and I'll talk about availability zone in detail in the upcoming slide. Just want to highlight another point here called, Sriram, go back to the previous slide. Just want to highlight another thing called as edge locations or cloud points of presence. These points of presence are available in 210 plus locations where we have our CDN solutions. Like let's say you are hosting a website and you have global audience. We have our edge locations in 200 plus locations. So it makes your service work faster. This is where your our AWS's own DNS service called Route 53 is there. Our CDN service called CloudFront is there. Our web application firewall is there. So we have many services running on edge locations. Let's move on, Sriram. I wanted to dive deeper on what is an availability zone, which is a differentiator with other clouds. So what AWS calls is a single region is made up of most of the time, 3 availability zones. So if you take the Singapore region, for example, we will have one availability zone. Think of availability zone as, let's say in Singapore, we have the airport, and near the airport, we have one building, 10 floors. All the 10 floors are data center. The building next to it, the 3-4 buildings in one area together is called one availability zone. Then some 50-60 kilometers away, we have another availability zone. They are in different floodplains. They are having completely different power. They have completely different network connection. So we have a second availability zone and then another third availability zone. So we have multiple availability zones. They are interconnected using low latency links with 10 millisecond, less than 12 millisecond latency between them. And this is connected by AWS. You don't have to do this connection. So I've seen customers who are running their data center in Colombo moving to AWS, and they consider the second availability zone as their DR. So this is something that I've seen a lot. So I just wanted to touch upon availability zone. There are at least 2 to 3 availability zones in each region. Let's move on, Sriram. Yeah. So what are the other benefits? The first benefit that we talk from customers is about cost. So huge capex that is there when you are going with on-prem, and now during the COVID times there were shipment delays, hardware servers coming in had a problem. But moving to cloud, you're not going to that capex model. You're going to the opex model. You pay and you have power to experiment a lot, right? So you don't have to pay upfront. You can do experiments. If you don't like, delete it, stop it. You pay as you go. And if you are planning to run some servers a longer duration, we have some options called reserved instances, which will reduce the cost for you if you do reservations. No upfront capital cost, and we also have optimal costs. Let's move on, Sriram. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about knowing it all. We have an expansive partner network. Even in Sri Lanka, we have a lot of partners. Some of our partners are also presenting in this event. I know one partner is presenting tomorrow in this event. We have thousands of partners, and we have local partners in Sri Lanka who can help you get going in your journey to AWS. Yeah, so one of the queries that I get a lot from customers is security, compliance, governance. How is it? I've done this. I have a compliant workload. I have a PCI DSS compliant workload. How can I do that on AWS? These kind of questions keep coming in. So let's move on, Sriram. So AWS has the most of the critical certifications that is needed from any cloud provider. I have one customer in Sri Lanka who wanted to move their workload to cloud because they were not able to meet that criteria on-prem. It was much more difficult to meet that criteria of getting their solution PCI DSS compliant on-prem. So they decided to move to AWS cloud, and we made all the necessary things required. We even brought in our experts to help them to meet that requirements. So yeah, let's move on, Sriram. We'll talk about security. So when you look at security, as we call it, we build our solution to meet the most complex workloads. And as the saying says, rising tide raises all boats. So because we build our solution for the most complex workloads, every customer who comes into AWS benefits from it. We have a variety of solutions. You can pick and choose whatever you like. And based on that, we have solutions around identity, protect, detect, response, recover. You can pick whatever is required for your environment, and accordingly, we can design your solution. Let's move on, Sriram. Thanks. So, and this is one of my favorite slides where a security conscious customer comes to me. Whenever I'm doing a conversation, I recommend this service called as Security Hub. So what happens with Security Hub is that your security team or a compliance team gets a clean dashboard of your entire AWS environment, and it clearly gives you a score on where are you on PCI, where are you on CIS, where are you on AWS foundational best practices. This once you enable this solution, it is going to scan your entire environment and give you a score, and it will tell you a reason why are you at this percentage, what needs to be done to improve your score. So many of our customers have gone for this and improved their scores. And if the scores come down, we can set up alerts if it comes down and all that. So yeah, just wanted to highlight the Security Hub to customers. So as I said, the most sensitive workloads run on AWS from FINRA, that is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, to Vodafone, which is a PCI DSS level 1 compliance was required for a huge telecom. We have these kind of workloads on AWS. So I wanted to highlight that security is job zero at AWS, and we have a lot of customers in Sri Lanka who are running security sensitive workloads on AWS cloud. So I just wanted to give that background. Let's move on, Sriram. Yeah, so I want to touch on a few basic services on AWS. We'll start with the first basic service, which is the Amazon EC2. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. These are like your virtual machines that run on a hypervisor. Very similar concept here. You have a hypervisor, we have your virtual machines. The only differentiator is that AWS has the, let's move on, Sriram. We have the most variety of these servers available. we have the broadest and deepest categories from general purpose to compute intensive servers to graphic intensive servers to big data, SAP certified servers. We have a lot of servers available, choice of platform. If you want Intel servers, AMD servers, or you want something called Graviton, which is AWS's own type of CPU chips, which gives you 40% cheaper price compared to Intel. So we have a lot of variety for you for cost saving, for performance, and so on. Now, some of my customers say that, okay, you have so much, but I'm confused. How do I know which is to pick? So that is where we go for a proof of concept. And then during the proof of concept, we have this free tool called AWS Compute Optimizer, which automatically scans your environment, looks at the history of your utilization of these servers, and recommends the right type of server for you. It will tell you that why are you running such a big server? Reduce it to this and you will still get the same performance. So it will give you recommendations. Once we iron out the recommendations, then if we know that this server has to run for throughout the year production servers, then we go for reducing it further by going to reserved instances. So let's move on, Shreya. And if you are already on AWS, this is one slide that I want to highlight for people who are already on AWS. AWS has this hard disk that you attach to server. There are many types of hard drives, SSD hard drives, as well as magnetic hard drives. Based on your requirement, you can change between this. My customers, by default, when you launch a V2, which stands for General Provision version 2, in this reInvent is our AWS event where we launch new features. We recently launched something called as GP3, General Provision 3, which is giving you the same performance as GP2, but a 20% reduction of cost. Please look up how to convert GP2 to GP3 and reduce your cost of running your hard disk on AWS. If you need more help at the end of this call, I'm going to give you my credentials, my email address. You can also reach out to me. I can help you to reduce cost of running your hard disks from GP2 to GP3. So yeah, just make a note that we have launched something called GP2 to GP3. Feel free to do that conversion. Next, we have our S3, which is our simple storage service. This is one of the most used services by our customers. They use S3 for backups. They use on-prem for live, and then they do DR on the cloud. So they just keep the backups over there. That is one option. Second, the most common option is data lake. They get the data from everywhere into this S3 as a data lake. S3 can store any amount of data. So we are using S3 as a data lake. And on top of that, we have our other solutions like a machine learning solution or Amazon Redshift, which is our data warehousing solution, EMR, which is our big data ETL solution for extract from the lake, transform and load it into a visualization platform. We can do all that, but S3 is one service that most of our customers are using. So let's go on, Shreya. Yeah, so the next thing that I want to quickly highlight is purpose-built databases. In the traditional world, we used to put relational database for every use case. However, with the modernization of applications, there is a chance for us to do microservices, break my application into microservices and use purpose-built databases for each of the requirement. Sriram, is it okay to open Amazon.com on your machine? I just want to show how an application using microservices and purpose-built databases is live.
Yeah, sure, Pranesh. Let me know if you could see my screen.
Yeah, I'm seeing something called Slack. So
yeah, yeah, I'm just opening.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, I can see your browser. You can go to Amazon.in or Amazon.com, anything is fine. So if you look at a website like Amazon.com.
Yeah, it's still loading up.
Yeah. Thanks. So if you look at this website, right, so it is having multiple areas. So the entire website was initially a monolith. Then we have made it into microservice-based application. Now, during, about Black Friday, sale days in America, there are millions of people doing transactions at the same time. Amazon.com should not go down. It has to be highly stable and it should be highly responsive. For example, if somebody search for an iPhone, can you just search for an iPhone there, Sriram? So there will be millions of people searching for an iPhone. So when I search for an iPhone like this, millions of people are searching. A relational database cannot give me that amount of, the results can't be so fast if I go with a relational database compared to going with a non-relational database. So yeah, you can go and search. Yeah, anything is okay. Yeah, for example, if there are millions of people searching for this word iPhone, AWS has so many products in its portfolio. You have to quickly search and give the result. For this, we use a NoSQL solution only for the search. All right. When he logs in, the name is there. Hello Sudha is there. So that name is stored in a different type of database. That is a Redis database. That is for your session details. For session details, we keep a different database. For add to cart, we'll keep a different database. And then for any payment transactions, for that we will use relational database. I'm not saying no relational, but all I'm saying is we can use purpose-built databases on the cloud. And what's best is that it's all managed databases. You don't have to scale or install these databases. Let's go back to the slides here. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so for example, we can use relational databases for transactional OLTP systems. We can go for that iPhone kind of a search on your web applications. We can go for Amazon DynamoDB, a NoSQL solution, or even a document DB for that in that case. Elasticache for in-memory databases, and Graph for databases like LinkedIn. You have link between people and all that. You can go for Graph databases. If you are doing stock market analysis, you can go for time series databases. So we have purpose-built databases based on the use case. You can pick the managed solution. Let's move on, Sriram. So I was talking about managed solution. I wanted to highlight what it means to be using a managed solution. Let's take a simple database hosted by you on-premise. If you're hosting a database on-premise, you, on the picture on the left side, as you can see, you are responsible for the power, the network, the rack, server maintenance, OS installation, and also the DB patches, installing the database, installing the OS, patching the database, high availability, and optimization. What we have seen is when you move these databases to cloud, automatically the area in yellow is taken care by AWS. Then you have to just focus on areas above that. That is if you go for our vanilla offering of EC2. However, if you go for our managed database offering like RDS, so these things also are taken care, like OS patching, database installation, database patching, database backup, and your DB admin can focus on high value things like query optimization. They don't have to waste their time on undifferentiated heavy lifting or stuff that can be managed by a cloud provider. You focus your staff on your value business. Let's move on, Sriram.
And to kind of add on, this is one of the reasons why a lot of our customers have been seeing improvement in their staff productivity, right? Because all the undifferentiated heavy lifting, things like management, everything has been taken care by AWS.
True. So yeah, I wanted to talk about our entire portfolio of offerings. If you see at the bottom of the screen in green, light green, we have the region, availability zone, and point of presence, which I already covered. After that, I also talked about our compute offerings, our storage offerings, and our database solutions, the networking, and all those things, right? On top of this, for security, we have a huge array of solutions to meet your security and compliance requirements. This being the base, on top of this, based on your requirement, you can go for analytics offerings, DevOps, mobile services, gaming services, IoT, machine learning. We have a huge variety. AWS has the maximum breadth and depth around a lot of services. And another point I want to convey here is that you are not alone. You don't have to get overwhelmed with this. That is why we have support available for you, starting from technical support if you need assistance, to professional services who can, AWS's own staff who can help you implement, or we have a huge partner ecosystem who can also help you implement this. We have a huge ecosystem in Sri Lanka as well, training and certification teams who can help your teams onboard and learn AWS better. You have solution architects like me who come and visit customers or enable you by providing you trainings. I know I can't visit you now. I miss Colombo, your food, but yes, we're still doing it virtually now. Every day I'm talking to customers in Sri Lanka. So I'm a solution architect and I talk to customers directly and understand their requirements. I also have a business person in front of me. If you need to talk business, we have an account manager who will be talking with your business teams and helping you start that journey to the cloud and help you throughout. So this is what I want to cover in this slide. We can move on, Sriram. Yeah. So finally, I want to tell you what sets AWS apart from others. First thing is the experience. AWS came up in 2006, and we have been having customers from that time on our cloud. So we have a huge experience of customers getting their feedback and running production workload for a very long time. The breadth and depth of services is huge. There are a lot of managed services which can take the heavy lifting off your shoulders with AWS. And the pace of innovation, AWS has brought in so many services year on year. The global footprint on the amount of region plus availability zone combined, 24 regions today, more regions announced, plus at least 3 availability zones per region. So we have a huge footprint, and AWS has reduced the price of its EC2 around 81 times. I think, I'm not sure if the number is right or it's changed now. We have reduced the cost of this server 81 times from the time we started. And we also have thousands of consulting partners and integrators. So this is a quick overview of why AWS, why cloud, and why AWS. Now I want to hand over to Sriram to talk about the migration strategies. Sriram, do we talk about migration strategies next?
Yeah, no, that's correct, Pranesh. So we kind of looked at the why migrate and then the AWS service offering. So we are going to little bit talk about how, right? How to do the actual migration. And I'd like to start off with some of the questions that come up with starting with any migration journey, right? So do I need to create a business case? And this comes up a lot of time, I already got an approval from management. Do I still need to go do a business case? And my answer to that is yes, because we should all start off with creating a business case which lays down a very solid foundation on what perceived benefits that you could get while starting the migration. Then we have questions around like, what do I need to migrate, or how do I migrate, or do I need to reskill my team? How do I optimize after migration? So these are some of the common questions that comes up when we talk to customers about who wants to migrate, and we hope to have answers to these in the upcoming slides, right? And to start off, we would like to highlight that getting an executive sponsorship is the absolute and one of the single most important thing to kickstart a migration journey. And this is because migrating on from, let's say, co-location or on-premise to something like AWS cloud, it has a lot of economic, business, cultural benefits. And since there are so many far-reaching consequences, it's always best to kind of have an executive buy-in. And executive is someone who is quite senior in the org. He could be like a CSOs or CTOs or even their direct reportees. But in general, these are persons who have a perspective of what the company's roadmap is going to look like, and get all the stakeholders to align behind it, right? So to kind of quote Capital One's CTO, he aptly summarizes like, if you don't have an executive sponsorship, or if you are not ready for a migration, you should not do the migration, right? So so getting an executive sponsorship, establishing the business case is basically the start of how it ties with your business values, is basically the start of discussion. And what we have done in AWS is we have tried to put all our learnings and looked at the different phases of migration into four phases, right? Which we call it as migration process, which is like a repeatable process and proven process we have used in thousands of customers scenarios. So we have like assessment phase, followed by readiness and planning, migration phase, and finally operationalize and optimize phase. Right? We'll look a little bit in detail in each one of them and what tools you could use in the upcoming slides. So starting off with the assessment phase. So here, basically what it is we take stock of what we have in our source infrastructure or in our source data center. For example, I have 10 servers. This is the chipset that it is running. This is the licensing that I need to, that I have procured at my data center. These are the databases, and this is the storage that I have utilized. So getting an inventory and stock of what you have is basically the assessment phase, right? And we then try to map them to AWS service and find the cost, like a bill of material of that in AWS. If you have to host it in AWS, what would be the bill of material? And this is the fundamental, the basis for establishing a business case. So let's look at how you do it, right? Like we have doing this for like even 10 servers is going to be very cumbersome because you have to collect a lot of data and manually crunch those data and create a report out of it. So we have something called Migration Evaluator, which could help you to automate it. So what it does is it can discover, it's an agent-based tool, which it can discover and analyze the source environment. It can then what it can do is it can create a right sizing of the target AWS environment. The reason why I want to stress about right sizing is typically when we operate in on-premise, we tend to over provision with the hope that we will get a lot of additional workload. We would try to add more capacity to handle those additional workload. Or the other reason could be like we might have procured more cores, or we might be using a very old chipset, whereas in AWS we would have be running with the latest chipset, right? So hence, when we try to compare on-premise versus AWS, it's very important to do a right-sizing exercise, right? What this migration evaluator can do is, once installed, it can collect the data, it can do a data ingestion, and it can do the cost modeling, and it finally kind of gives you a bill of material. If you were to migrate to AWS, what would be the bill of material, right? So what Migration Evaluator does is it's a very proven tool. It has been used in so many different scenarios, and has been implemented by so many partners and migration cases where they have been able to significantly reduce when they were cost when they were migrating to AWS. So to give a gist of what we are talking about, let's look at a quick example. So let's say in on-premise, we are using 10 cores. And if we were to directly match in AWS and find 10 cores, this will probably be the cost. But there are few factors that you can consider. One is, like I said, this course might be used like 40% of the time, or this is probably a really old chipset, in which case what this tool will do is it will kind of provide you a right sizing recommendation, right? And our customers, typically they have been able to see like around 36% reduction in the overall cost by just going by the recommendation and being able to still meet the performance benchmark or the criteria that have been set forth for the application, right? So to kind of summarize TCO analysis and business case, you could use our tool called Migration Evaluator, which can automatically discover data and also provide you reports, and also apply all the right sizing methodology and the optimization strategy which Pranesh touched upon, and provide you like a bill of material which you could use as a basis for your business case, your TCO analysis. Right. So once we have the report, we have established this is how much it will cost on hosting in cloud. What is the next step is basically readiness and planning. So what we have seen is three distinct patterns when it comes to making a plan for more hosting in AWS. So the first one is, many customers are realizing that they have a lot of older applications which are not even relevant today, right? And these can be retired and give like 10 to 20% of the app portfolio can be retired, right? This is a statistics based on our historic data migration. I mean server migrations. Second, there are thousands of SaaS vendors who didn't exist like 5-7 years ago, which you might probably not have considered. These could be replaced by SaaS vendor. Like to give an example, like Salesforce is a CRM platform. A lot of customers have adopted Salesforce CRM as opposed to building their own CRM products. Right. So instead of using your own product, you could use the SaaS product, which basically shrinks the operational portfolio and the operational IT operation that are needed. So this reduce the size of your estate is probably the first step, right? Assess and reduce the size of the estate. Then decisions can be done on either lift and shift or re-platform. So we see more and more customers adopting the re-platform for example, from Windows to Linux servers or from Oracle to MySQL or Postgre when they adopt AWS to reduce the licensing costs. And finally, you can choose to transform and modernize. The key lesson here is that customers should focus on modernizing on application or the services that matters to their business first, right? So we see transformation and modernizing getting applied at least like 20% of the portfolio over time. So we'll touch more about what kind of modernizations that we can apply later on. But once you move to AWS, transformation could be like another path to further optimize or plan for migration, right? So once we have the high-level plan, then we would start with the actual migration itself, right? So we have multiple tools for it, but to start with, let's say if you are hosting a database like MySQL or Oracle, MS SQL, database migration service would be the best service to move to AWS. So either you could, irrespective of whether you use host the database in EC2 servers or in Amazon RDS, you could use the database migration service to move the data to one of them. DMS, as it's shortly called, can also do continuous data replication. So what that means is you do an incremental, your initial migration, and then you could do an incremental catch-up. Right, and this helps you to kind of reduce the downtime in migration. You could switch over once the continuous data replication is established. You could switch over the application from your on-premise to the cloud database, right? And you could also use it to migrate between database engines. For example, Oracle to Amazon Aurora or MySQL Postgre, because you want to optimize on the licensing, for example. Right, and we have a tool called schema conversion tool, which can reduce significantly the effort involved in such a migration. We look a little bit more about how this tool can be utilized in the next slide. Right, so basically with the schema conversion tool, it is a two-step process. Step one, we use this tool to get the data from the source database. And you basically provide the credential for the target database. So what it does is the schema conversion tool. Let's say the source is MySQL and the target is Oracle. Let's say the source is Oracle and the target is MySQL. Schema conversion tool will create automated SQL script to convert to create the schemas, tables, triggers, all the database objects from the source to the target, right? And once that is done, once the schema is created in the target destination database, you could use the AWS DMS tool to start migrating the data from the source to target. Right? So this is a very powerful pattern which could be used to migrate database from on-premise to cloud. It's a very highly proven tool. We have like close to more than 110,000 database, and the list is just growing every day. So we have one of the largest, more than any other migration tool by a large margin. The number of migration that have been done using this tool is really high, right? So then moving on, so we looked at database migration. We have another tool called Cloud Endure, which can be used for server migration, right? So Cloud Endure is it's a tool. It's highly flexible. So you install the tool in one of the servers which you want to migrate from. Let's say you have a server in on-premise, you could install the tool at the agent in the on-premise server. What it can do is it supports a wide variety of OS application and database support, and it can migrate from any source. Like it could be you might be hosting in physical server or VMware. It is highly compatible with any source, and it uses proprietary technology which is crash consistent, so which makes it very reliable. So every time you boot using the backup from the Cloud Endure, it is going to be like that it's going to boot up, right? And it boots up in a very minimal downtime, so which means you could cut over easily, and it's certified and been proven in highly regulated environment. And the last but not the least, it's very automated. You could run non-disruptive test, and it can easily plug in. It's API driven and can plug in with your other tools of your choice, right? So Cloud Endure, in summary, it could be used for rapid, very large scale migration. It's very simple, easy to get started with minimal upskilling, and it eliminates a lot of complexity involved in migration. So we strongly recommend using Cloud Endure if you were to get started, right? And we also have something called Migration Hub. So what Migration Hub does is you can track the progress of multiple tools. You could track them in one place, right? So Migration Hub can manage migration in any region, any tool. So it gives you like a single pane of glass by which you could look at the view of all the upcoming migrations. You could also logically segregate the servers. For example, you see sales tracking app, it has 8 servers, and the status of the migration. All this helps you to understand in one snapshot what is the status of different migration. It's a very useful tool when you are running a large scale migration, and it is free of charge. It can be utilized in any regions and can give you a bird's eye view of the status of the large scale complex migration, right? So to kind of recap on the migration tools, we have one of the largest, most number of tools to support a hassle-free migration. We talked about Cloud Endure, which does which you could use to hassle-free migration, followed by database migration service. We talked about Migration Hub. We also have complementary partner offerings. So these are things which could integrate with Migration Hub and give you a single pane of glass. And last but not the least, we have a lot of data transfer options. Like if you are having large data transfer requirements from on-premise to cloud, you could use Direct Connect, or you could use one of our Snow family, which could be used to transfer terabytes of data in a very short period of time, right? So this is a summary of all the things. And finally, we come to the last stage, which is basically operationalize and optimize, right? So what we have here is over the last 12 years, we have close to 21 services, which we call as our management and governance portfolio services, right? I don't want to talk about these, but from a migration standpoint, what matters to you as a customer is that we have been constantly innovating. We have been adding new services, thinking about migration scenarios, and adding new services, looking at these migrations. For example, CloudFormation lets you to create infrastructure as code, which is easy, so that you could manage cloud infrastructure very easily. We have AWS CloudWatch, which helps you to monitor, observe, and optimize, right? you might be wondering by now, like doing all this is going to be really cumbersome. How do I get started? So one thing we have is Control Tower. What it does is, if you are operating newly or you are getting started on AWS, you could start off we highly recommend to start off your journey with AWS Control Tower. It will quickly set up all the governance best practices that are needed to run a multi-account cloud environment in like a click of a button, right? So it kind of has all the best practices built into it and being utilized by thousands of enterprises to operate securely, right? Then we talked a little bit about modernization and how it could help. So when you use the modernizers, Pranesh talked about how Elasticsearch can help, right? So when you are on cloud, you could leverage all our managed database offerings or our managed services to help achieve your business requirements easily. You could very easily modernize by targeting a specific functionality and leveraging our managed services. And we know that these are not the only questions. Every customer is unique. Every customer have their own story and their complexities. So we have also like a migration acceleration program, which is like a packaging of our best practices, AWS financial incentives, training, partner, our methodologies that we talked about, all of them packaged as a program, which helps you to kind of accelerate or get started, right? So with that said, I want to conclude with a call to action. So we have dropped our coordinates over here. So please, if you are interested in any of the migration tools or the methodologies that we talked about, please feel free to reach out. We would love to connect with you, your executive champion, and build out a business case and build a POC to showcase the cloud potential. And we would also love to work with you to enable or provide training that is required to move on to cloud. So with that said, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and I would like to open the floor for any further questions.
Thanks, Sriram. Sriram, can you put that previous slide again?
Yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah.
That email address. The second email address is mine, Pranesh, Solution Architect for Sri Lanka. And we also have our Business Development Manager for Sri Lanka, Ashwin, whose email ID is there. So you can note and get in touch with us if you're interested to know more about any of the AWS offerings.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we are open on question answers. Please put your questions on the chat. We'll try to get those questions and then we will address them. We have 10 minutes, so we'll take those few minutes for questions. So if we don't have questions, Sriram, I'll just talk about some of the customers I'm talking with in Sri Lanka, the kind of use cases that I'm talking with, while I'm not naming any customers right now. I will talk about some use cases. There is one customer who is looking at modernizing their applications in the cloud, right? So they've been in the on-prem, and it is time for data center to retire. Some of their hardware is getting very old, and they're looking at retiring the data center, and they want to take this opportunity to modernize their applications. So they reached out to us on how can we modernize their applications, and then what we are doing right now is we understood the landscape. I think you are also involved, Sriram, and we are running some workshops for them on containerization, introducing what is container, what is Kubernetes, what is Amazon's own containerization solution, and how they can modernize. That is one workload that I'm working with. I'm also working with a lot of customers in Sri Lanka for SAP migration to cloud, along with partners in Sri Lanka. So we have some partners who are working with our leading enterprises in Sri Lanka for moving their SAP production workload to the Singapore region. And we have tested, they wanted to know if we are migrating from on-prem to cloud, how will our latency be? So we did a VPN tunnel connection, and we did the testing, and we got 60 millisecond VPN connection. So now the next steps, we're starting to look at setting up the SAP on certified SAP instances, looking at how to reduce the cost by going to Linux, Red Hat Linux, and so on. So that is one workload we are looking at. and there are many startup customers who are there who have hosted, and they've asked us for enablement on AWS basic services. How do I get started? And then I'm giving them free trainings on AWS basic services. And we've been working with many customers in Sri Lanka recently. Even during COVID times, I'm seeing there are some compelling reasons to do data center.
One thing that often comes up, Pranesh, is like we could also use AWS Cloud to run dev QA environments. So the elasticity of cloud plays beautifully when we host our dev and QA environments in the cloud. Like I'm sure you would also come where customers would have, when they don't use it in, let's say, weekends. You basically stop the AWS cloud and the dev and QA environment, and then the cost is it's very cost effective to run these environments. So just looking only that mindset that only production could be hosted in AWS is also another thing which we come across during this time.
I agree, Sriram. I think we have customers who are starting with UAT and dev, and they start with a proof of concept kind of thing. And after that proof of concept is over, then they start with UAT dev. Once they get confidence, then they slowly start bringing in less critical workloads and then move to critical workloads. We have customers who matured to critical workloads now, but yeah, that is the typical customer journey that we've seen with AWS. So I think we come to the top of the hour, Sriram. I don't see any more questions coming up right now. So I think we can wind up this session. Thank you very much, Sri Lanka team, for giving us an opportunity to talk to you today evening. Thanks for staying back and listening to us patiently. Thank you very much. Ayu Bowan again. Vanakkam in Tamil.
Ayu Bowan.
Miss Sri Lanka. Hope this COVID goes away and I can keep coming back to Sri Lanka. Hope to talk to you in person. Feel free to reach out to me and Ashwin on email if you have any requirements. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.